Good morning and welcome to the Upzone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your two hosts. I am Tisha S. Waddell. I'm joined by Mr. Elmer Floyd. I'm a former city council member for the city of Fayetteville in the third district of the city, and he is a former House representative from the, why you look at me like that, from the 43rd district in the state of North Carolina. We do this podcast because it's our goal to make understanding politics simpler, and we enjoy talking political content. Quite frankly, Mr. Floyd, tell the people we've been having a good 20-minute conversation about what needs to be done to fix our community.
The
We've been
only
talking
thing that the
infrastructure,
only thing that can help
stormwater.
us, the only thing that can help us is use the Jesse Jackson philosophy. We just gotta keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. I'm not mad at keeping hope alive. I think keeping hope alive is a great idea. Mr. Floyd, on another note, what are our announcements for today?
Well, we have Justice Brown that's coming to Fayetteville at Fayetteville State University on September the 4th. Teach, and she sold out. So that is good. And the John Lewis, there would be a John Lewis activity at the First Baptist Missionary Church in Wilmington, North Carolina, on this month, on the 17th at 6 p.m. So
Okay.
those person in the Wilmington area that want to participate in that, please do. And teach. I attended Sheriff Wright retirement, if I may, and it was a lot of people there, sending him off. And every quarter, I would call the sheriff and his attorney, and and say to them, "I'm coming over to carry you to lunch." And the sheriff would say, "We're already at lunch." I said, "Well, I'll call you back next month to carry you."
Yeah,
And I will always say to him, and he has a good sense of humor.
he does.
He realize that. And I said, I was coming to your program and I stopped by the post office and the signs directed me here. He said, "Why you stopped by the post office?" I said, "They had the 10 most wanted people, and they sent me here to you,
Yeah.
because you are retired, you know, and that's our humor that we have." And so sometime I call him, and talk with him because he loved to work outside and he loved to work on his cars, and he has a lift and all that he utilize when he working. And I said, "Man, you mean to tell me your wife done put you out again?" you know,
And there's an
yeah,
article. Listen, Mr. Floyd, there's an article in City View today, and his wife is absolutely stunning. They are a gorgeous couple, and I'll tell you, I know that she is very grateful. We are going to miss his service to this community, but I know that she's very grateful for her husband to be coming home in one piece at the end of his career. And for that, we give thanks because there are a lot of people in law enforcement that don't have that story to tell.
see,
So we're very grateful to we are definitely losing a giant in this community, Mr. Floyd. And it broke my heart I've always known that there was just something uniquely special about our sheriff. You just have that sixth sense where that discernment, and there's just something about him. And when I read the write-up about him, I put my finger on exactly what it was. He's a fellow believer, and when you have believers in positions of leadership, it makes a difference.
well, really, he's the kind of person that he didn't want this retirement. He just
Hmm.
wanted to go. But his wife, which has a whole lot of influence over him,
Yeah,
said, "Guess what, T? She wanted it."
that's right. We
You
celebrating
know,
because she's been certified in law enforcement also.
he said, "She wanted it." He said,
That's
"Floyd, what
right.
do you think I was gonna do?" He
That's right. That's
said
right.
she wanted it, and so I'm here.
Yeah, and we're so proud. We're so proud of the service of our sheriff. We're so grateful for his service to this community, and we wish him well in retirement. And we hope that this is not the last we'll see of him out and about. But I
Yeah.
know when we look, but Mr. Floyd, when we retire, we take it to the house and we do what we love.
Yeah. Now they're going to do the county board of commission are going to do a replacement on August the 11th. He has recommended someone to fill, as the interim, until the next election. But I wish him the best, and I'm still gonna carry him to lunch once I get me some money.
I know
And
that's right.
our
Now he
first one
might
will be
let
McDonald's.
now
Our
he might
first,
let you know.
yeah, our first one will be McDonald's.
Yeah.
With a Happy Meal. We not going too far out now.
Yeah. What other announcements do you have for us?
Now that's all we have, Tisha. And going forward, this is middle of the month, so this is the 16th, so a few more days and a couple of weekends. My creditors will give me a break. Going into the summer.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything is good. What about the council and those persons that filed for the council seat? I know there's countywide election, but how did that race look so far going into?
Well, at last look, Mr. Floyd, it still appeared as if District 1 has several people who have filed to run. District 2 seems to be unopposed. District 3 now has two people slated to run. District 4 has two people slated to run. District 5 seems to be unopposed still. District 6, I believe, was also unopposed. District 7 has nobody had filed the last time I checked. And that's currently seated by Council Member Brenda McNair. District 8, if I'm not mistaken, has one contender. District 9 has two contenders because I think District 8 is where Courtney Banks McLaughlin
Yeah.
is serving, and she has re-registered to run for her seat. And District 9 has two contenders, and still there are 4 or 5 people who have registered to run for mayor. It's interesting because the feedback from the community, if you look online, is kind of disappointed with their choices as it stands. Um, and in some regards, particularly in the mayoral vein, they seem to be looking for still a different candidate, somebody who brings something different to the table. I think that we're hearing also that people are disappointed, Mr. Floyd, with the fact that there's not competition for some of the seats. I think they would like to see that, and then also for some of the seats, as an example, some of the seats that have no incumbent in it and just somebody who new is running. There are people who are saying that we really need to vet these candidates because they're just sort of popping up, and it seems like it's a case of if you want to run, just go down there and put your name on the ballot. So there's a lot of feedback coming back from the community. I'm eager
Teach,
to see how it shapes up.
teach. We had talked about this many a time. This community vote on how they feel about a candidate. We are not concerned whether or not that candidate can provide to our district or our community. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Floyd, I think that's
we just-
shifting.
we-
I
No,
think that's shifting.
no. I mean, you can look at it. You can look at it here. I mean, for some apparent reason, we're just happy. I mean, I never seen. Well, let me take that. We are a happy community when it comes down to election. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter with us. But we want to see progress and we want to see change. As I mentioned to you, I attended activity, and the pastor of Lewis Chapel spoke, and he said one thing at the Shaw banquet: we want to make changes, but we use the same vision. But that's what we do. I mean, I give you an example. I was talking to someone about the Martin Luther King Committee as an example.
Hmm.
You know, they voted for a president of the committee, not the board of directors. Stanley Ford is the board of directors.
Hmm.
And I always thought, Chief, always thought that a person elected to the chair would be present to receive the nomination. The person wasn't even present when the vote took place.
Do you know if there was a conversation beforehand with that person?
It may have been, but still, if you're running for office, you need to be present to acknowledge, to accept, and thank those person who voted for you.
Right.
And, and then again, I got another conversation wherein that the person who was came into the organization, this person came into the organization on 1 month. The next month, she was appointed interim president, and the interim president was let go because the board of director chair did not like her. Okay. So this person took office in July, around July of last year. And there
Okay.
has been 2 to 3 activities that have taken place by committees. She has no knowledge.
Okay.
So this is
Yeah.
calm. This is calm. I mean, I didn't see anything. But can you imagine? I'm taking office, have not read the bylaws, and do not understand my role as the leader.
Well,
But that's
Mr.
what happened.
Floyd, let me say this. I will speak to leadership, and I will say that it is commonplace for people to end up in positions, and when they end up in these positions, they don't understand how to do the job.
Oh,
So
now
that is commonplace.
let me send you an A+ on that, if I can, please. No
Yeah.
charge. No charge. I'm gonna send it to you because we don't understand that. We want, as I always say to you, your friend Archie Macmillan say, we just want to sit in, the fit in.
But I think it's very important, Mr. Floyd, for a governing body, or not even just a governing body, but even the organization that you're referring to. I think it's very important when you bring people in to make sure that they understand the culture, the processes and the procedures, and that they understand what their role is. Because if that's missing, you end up with chaos, and we've seen chaos from governing boards. We have a guest today. We have Mr. Robert E. Wilson joining us. He is in the lobby. I'm going to go ahead and introduce him, and then we will let him in the room. Mr. Floyd. So, Mr. Wilson, again, is a longtime North Carolina state official with over 30 years in public service. He retired in late 2012 after serving as Assistant Secretary of State and Chief Legislative Liaison. Um, and he, Mr. Floyd, worked with the North Carolina Community College System and the Department of Corrections. He is a recipient of the Order of the Longleaf Pine Award, which is, we've talked about this before, one of North Carolina's highest civilian honors. He is a native of Wilson, North Carolina, a graduate of Fayetteville State University, and is also a former candidate for office for the lieutenant governor position in the state of North Carolina. Um, we'll go ahead and let Mr. Wilson in and welcome him to our podcast. Welcome, Mr. Wilson. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. We have introduced you. We gave you a glowing introduction, but it wasn't hard to do because you're a man of distinction. So, welcome back to our podcast, Mr. Floyd. You can go ahead and get started interviewing our guest today.
Robert, welcome to our program, man.
Well, thank you so very much. I really, really appreciate the opportunity. And I must admit, I was a little bit late here because I was trying to figure out how everything works, but we're good.
Well, the reason why I talk with my host and my colleague, there's a Washington belt line and there is a Raleigh belt line. And we just really want you to bring us up to date on that Raleigh belt line as it relates to the political sector and where we are and where we're going.
Well, I've been doing a little research there on that Raleigh Belt line, and that's a very good question about where we're going because I think a lot of this is beginning to play into what happens on the federal level, is now beginning to trickle down to the state and local level. Because what we're seeing now is some programs that are not going to be funded, and that's going to be millions, if not billions of dollars that we would have normally gotten in a cycle we won't get now. So now we're sitting in a situation where the North Carolina General Assembly does not have a budget. It's operating on this last year's budget because I think they're a little reluctant about going ahead and funding programs, not knowing if they're going to be funded or not.
Well, tell so our so our viewers can know when you mention last year's funding, that
Mhm.
means that it is operating off the last year budget. There's no growth in there, and they cannot spend beyond what the appropriation was for the last fiscal year budget. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And therein lies the $1 million problem. We got people now that are going back to school. You got a larger population. You got kids going back to school that don't know if they're going to have any money to fund those programs. We don't know if we're going to be able to fund some teachers. We don't know much about nothing right now. We're just kind of at the mercy of what they do on the federal level.
So taking that into consideration, and you've been in that budgetary process because when I was on general government, your agency came to general government to request funds. Now, the the process is that you know if what happened as an example in 2020 when we did not approve a budget, that means that the budget was 2018-2019 budget.
Right.
And then what that board, the party that's in charge now, we gave them a large surplus that they're still operating on this year, because that budget, and they requested that the agency spend 15% less than
Hmm.
what the appropriation was during that year. And so there is a surplus there. I think it's down now to about $2 to $3 billion. But if they dip into that surplus, then it'll be difficult for them going forward if they have if we have a flood or have a hurricane in which to operate on.
Well, the funds that you're talking about is what we call the rainy day fund. And in the rainy day fund, it is basically like a savings account. I guess you would call it a savings account.
Yeah.
And those dollars are basically one-time dollars. They are not reoccurring dollars every year. So, we have to deal with that in terms of emergencies. And right now, we don't know what's going to happen with the budget because, like I said earlier, the federal government now is beginning to trim back dollars and is trying to push everything down now to the state level. Now, one or two things are going to happen on the state level. You're either going to spend a lot of your rainy day money or you're going to raise taxes.
What
And
about cut?
but you got, well, they ain't going to do too much cutting.
No,
They're
no, no, no. I'm talking about when we start looking at agencies and personnel. We, I mean, you can't operate, a deficit budget. The Constitution indicate that we must have a balanced budget.
right. And you're going to end up cutting some programs to a point because I don't think you can do much cutting to education. You're going to have to fund education regardless. And I don't think you can look out I'll give you a prime example of that. Let's say in rural North Carolina, you're going to have to fund those programs that allocate dollars for teachers and students. You're going to have to do that because if you don't, and you start losing teachers because you're not getting monies, then you're going to create an environment where education becomes a secondary issue and not the primary issue. And when you start to uneducating kids and just basically warehousing kids, then we have created a major problem.
I have a question, Mr. Wilson. So
Yes,
when we
ma'am.
talk about educating children and warehousing them, and I don't ask this question to be contentious or even to point fingers, but I ask it in response to what we're seeing in terms of student success rate in a lot of our public schools. Are we there already where we're essentially warehousing and not necessarily effectively educating? Because Mr. Wilson, I think back to my time in school and I look at these children now, and it's vastly different. And although technology has really expanded the possibility and the capabilities in the classroom, students are not learning. They're not on a broad scale, they're just not learning. We have some schools that do very well in educating their students, but we have other schools that are failing miserably. So how are we, when we're looking at, and I can see to your credit, where if we begin to reduce an already broken system, that it exacerbates the problem. But how do we repair this? Because much of the other side of this conversation is saying these things are not necessary because they're not working. Some of these things are not necessary because they're not working. So how do we find the balance where we can strike a genuine conversation that gets us to real solutions?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to have an open and honest discussion about what we think education really is and what we need to do to educate our kids. When we were coming along, it was entirely different in that math, English, those types of curriculum were basically fundamental courses that were creating our foundation in terms of our livelihood as adults later on. Now, these kids are coming up in a different generation where fundamentals are different from what they were with us. AI is going to be critical for these kids going forth. Their ideas about technology and all those things now are stuff that we only dreamed of, and now it's a reality for them. So we're going to have to figure out what, in fact, is education and how it fits the life and allow the life's foundation for our kids going forward.
Now, you guys started the conversation talking about infrastructure, talking about the roadways. So when we look at, for example, the future 685, Mr. Floyd and I were talking a lot before we got on the show today about how a lot of development has bypassed Fayetteville for whatever reason. Are we positioned to see that happen again with this new highway system, where now they're considering whether it will go to Harnett County or whether it will come to Fayetteville? Is that something that you have an opinion about? And if so, what is your opinion?
Well, I think you're going to see, remember now, what we're seeing now is basically an infrastructure bill that the Biden administration put in order. All right. As those funds now begin to dwindle down, then you're going to see those larger populations be the ones that they concentrate on because they have a bigger volume of traffic and in terms of dealing with other programs. So you're going to see less monies coming down to your area and rural areas than we would have seen with the Biden administration. Plus, remember now, we're sitting in a situation now where we're basically seeing the last of what we saw called COVID funds. All right. COVID funds were those dollars when everybody was housed in, and we had those dollars coming down from the federal government that basically a lot of people kind of sit into a savings account. Now they are having to spend that money because the cost of living and everything else has gone up. So you're coming to the end of those COVID funds. That was about roughly six, maybe $5, $6 trillion that was pumped into the economy. That now you're beginning to see. the end of those dollars. So we got that problem where there is no whole lot of money now in the economy. Plus, we got a major problem that I've always said was going to be a problem for the last 10, 15 years, and that's minimum wage. Because what we're seeing now is the cost of living going up, but minimum wage has remained stagnant. It's still 7.25. And you have an awful lot of people in North Carolina that don't make a decent wage that can have what I call a livable wage and live a decent life based on their wage. So until we begin to raise the minimum wage, which I think needs to be at least $15 an hour, and right now it sets at 7.25, been 7.25 since July 2009 when Barack Obama was president. They raised it. It has not been raised since then. And it used to be when I was growing up back in '76, when I came into the workforce, minimum wage was $2.30. But it had incremental raises during those times. For the last 15 years, those wages have remained stagnant. And thus you are beginning to see a decrease in the middle class in this country, as well as a growth of the lower income folks.
Mr.
And
Wilson, at the risk of sounding terribly ignorant, I want to ask you a question.
oh
But
no,
I'm
there's
I'm
never
gonna make I'm gonna make myself vulnerable in this moment because I think that's the only way we learn sometimes. And I know I can't be the only person listening to this conversation that has this question. When we talk about minimum wage, it's a two-part question. Part one is why do we still have adult earners in the workforce earning minimum wage? And part two is how does raising minimum wage affect earners who are not at that minimum wage, who are earning at a different level? So like, if why do we still have people that are 30 making minimum wage? What is fundamentally happening that is something that's going on? Why do we have mothers that are 25 trying to raise a kid making minimum wage? What's going on societally and just personally that we have that going on? But then secondarily, how does raising the minimum wage affect if I'm already in the workforce and I'm making $19 an hour, because I have a degree and I'm working in a career field that affords me the opportunity to do that? How does that affect that earner?
well, I think what we have done here is we've created this image that says that the better educated you are, the more money you will make. All right. And in the process, there are an awful lot of people when they graduated from high school have never pursued other education. All right. There are an awful lot of people and even some folks that have graduated from college have never picked up another book since they left school. So their educational level is basically stagnant and it just sits at one level. Now, if I, as an employer, want to raise your wage, I need to get more production. And if I can get more production based on your educational qualification, then we can raise your wage. But again, the federal government has set the wage scale at $7.25 as minimum wage.
Right. I think I still have some like that. My brain is still trying to, and maybe Mr. Floyd, you might be able to answer that. My brain is still trying to process why do we I, when I was a kid, minimum wage, and you guys may be able to attest to this. As a young person, when I entered the workforce, minimum wage was for me at 14 or 15, getting my first job, learning how to work. That's who minimum wage was for. Why do we have adult earners who have been in the workforce who are still at that level of earning? What is inherently going on that's causing that to be the case?
Well, let me say this here. Irregardless of how you look at it, any pay scale is going to have a adverse effect on a group of people. Irregardless of how you look at it, it's just like a reclassification of position. You're gonna have an adverse effect. The concern is the group that we want to move up, which is the low end. You know, there's only one pot of money that you have to take these raises, to put into these raises. So I don't care how you look at it, any program for increase in salary is going to have an adverse effect on one group. I don't care how you look at it. So that's the problem that that we face. And as Robert mentioned, today it's hard for a person with no high school diploma to be employed, in a reasonable paying job because they look at educational qualification. It's just like when you go to McDonald's, and I was there the other day, Robert, getting a cup of coffee. They had the pictures up on a little scale that's going across there of how this hamburger is supposed to look. Okay.
Mhm.
So it either say one pickle, two pickles, or three pickles, you know. And so unfortunately, and we know that just like in our community, Teach, we talked about this, Robert. If you ever need some gas, Robert, and have a problem, we are the gas capital of the world. Fayetteville has more gas stations than any community that I ever seen. But those person, I mean, those are person make less than $30,000 a year, and that's the community in which we serve. They know that, and people, believe it or not, people want to work. They don't want handouts, and so they take these jobs because they become in. They want to be independent, so they take these jobs. So unfortunately, anything that you do, Tish, any position or any reclassification is going to have an adverse effect on one population. But we do this in order to advance a portion of that population.
Y'all didn't answer my question, but that's okay.
I,
It's
I
okay
mean,
because no, because let me say
but
this. Let me
I
say
mean,
this because I've given a lot of thought to this, Mr. Floyd. And even as I sit here, and I know this might sound very, people might say this sounds privileged, but I'm going to say it anyway. I have two daughters. Neither of them have ever worked for minimum wage. But that is because they have so, and I'm going to tell you where I think the breakdown comes from. That is because they have parents who have taught them how to enter the workforce at a different place than minimum wage entry level. I worked minimum wage when I came up, but that's what was expected of us when I came up. When you entered the workforce, you go get a job in the mall, or you go get a job at fast food, or you go get a job in somebody's little office area, and they pay you seven 25. It might have been $3 or $4 back then. They pay you whatever so that you can learn how to work, and then you take those skills and you build a resume and you build on that and you move forward. Or you have a parent that brings you into their workforce and they teach you how to work so you gain skills. I think the gap, and it always goes back to this for me, anytime we talk about issues that are financial constraints on a government, it always goes back to the family unit for me. It always goes back to the level of and not, and like you said, Mr. Wilson, it's not education. It's not, did you get college educated? It's, have you been taught to reason? Can you read? Can you write? Can you do those fundamentals, arithmetic? Think back to Mr. Floyd, when you talk about McDonald's. You walk in McDonald's now and you hand a cashier money and you give them a little extra to make sure that you get back less coins, and you lose them. You lose them because they can't do fundamental math. They can't reason. So when we started the family structure, and the family structure and the breakdown in the fundamentals, to me, is why we have people now and when I say family structure, don't get it confused. I don't mean you got to have a mama and the daddy in the house that's teaching the kids, but I mean family even in terms of community, your community output that brings up members in this community to bring them along successfully. We're missing that. And we keep talking about raising wages, but we have to raise people. And I know it's very, and Mr. Wilson, I appreciate your perspective, and Mr. Floyd, yours as well. But I think we just missed that small piece when we talk about raising the income level, but we don't talk about why people are earning minimum wage, because minimum wage should be for a kid that's still living at home with their mother and their father, and they don't need to work, but they're learning to work. It should not be for an adult who is trying to take care of themselves or a family. That is
Madam
a
Waddell, you
travesty,
are so
and it
true.
should not be
Madam
happening.
Waddell, you are so true. But when you look at the way industry move into a community,
That's the other
is the
bad part.
okay? I mean, when you look at Fayetteville, brother Wilson, when
We
you
got
look at
more
what is
restaurants
the
popping up.
minimum wage, everybody looked at Amazon when it came to Fayetteville. Okay, and Amazon was paying $15 an hour. You multiply $15 an hour times 40, okay, times 52, you come up with about $31,000. Okay, so what I'm saying to you, you also got to look at the community in which these industries locate. So if a person is making $31,000 uh, a year, and he get married, and his wife, the two together is making $62,000. When they get through buying a car, taking care of that lodges and all that other kind of stuff, they still poor. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what we deal with is the geographical location. Now, we are not going to attract this new industry, Robert, that's going to Greensboro, this single
We don't have the workforce.
lane, that's going that's going to invest $4 billion and going to have 14,000 employees. See, Cumberland County, we don't have that. Even if we had the company located there, well, we just can't get a donkey or a mule to move the transportation to the market for the goods and service. We can't move it. When you look at
We
Greensboro,
need better infrastructure.
we can't do it. So how do we expect, Robert, to get better jobs when we don't even have water that the industry definitely need in order to locate? But anyway, Robert, I could talk with Teach that you ran for lieutenant governor at one time. Uh, how did what was your experience at that before I ask you the next question there? What was your experiences running for the lieutenant governor
That's a
and the
great
Democrat?
question.
Well, when running for lieutenant governor, I found out, and you moving across the state, you find out that one size doesn't fit all, so to speak. That the needs are vastly different in eastern North Carolina versus central North Carolina versus western North Carolina. So, how do you fit what best fits those needs? I think needs to be incorporated with the folks in those particular areas. There
Hmm.
needs to, again to be conversation had about what is, in my opinion, a livable wage, what's a decent wage, what is infrastructure, what is affordable housing, things of that nature. But
Hmm.
again, the problem that I had was not with running for lieutenant governor is it was more about a selection process than it was about electing the best candidate. Because,
Explain that, sir.
all
Break
right,
that down a little bit, Mr. Wilson.
what I mean by that is when you normally now, it used to be when we entered into politics, it was about the time and the effort that you had put into the community and knowing the people in the community and how the people in the community would speak of you if they held you in high regards. Now,
Hmm.
when you enter into politics, the very first question they're going to ask you is they'll say,
Are
well,
you a
we're
Democrat?
glad that you're in here, but can you raise the money? They don't ask you what your ideals are. They don't ask you what type of relationship you have. They don't ask you none of that. First thing they ask you is, can you raise the money? And if you say, well, I can raise money to a point, but I'm gonna need your help, then they go back and they have a discussion and they decide who they're going to give the money to make sure that you don't get that money. And that has, in my opinion, created some harsh relationships within the party because the party looks like it is selecting the candidate and not the people. And in a democracy, and I would tell people anywhere this, in a democracy, the people are the foundation and the power. And should always, nobody that sits in a city council seat or county commissioner seat or representative seat or state senate or any elected official should ever think that that chair belongs to them and they're behind, because it does not. That chair belongs to the people. And when the people see fit that you're not doing the job, they need to send you home. If you're not there to advocate for their interests, time for you to go home.
Robert, you're singing good as a choir, director. You are directing very well, but in our community, the African American community, is when a governor comes into your community and tell you who he wants to serve him.
Right.
Is that democracy? Is that democracy?
No.
I mean, but that's what the minority community face. Now, you ran for lieutenant governor. If you go back and look at 2020, we had 3 minorities to run for a council or state position. Very little funding was given to them. In the last election, we had 2 minorities and one other person that ran, no money, and we had a appeals court judge, no money. But I keep getting these contribution letter that I think my friend Madam Waddell gave. They have them to send a contribution to that organization. When I see that the organization does not fund African American candidates, they just don't fund African American candidates. But now, what they want at the end of the day, the most loyal party, the most loyal group to the Democrat Party is the African American community. And I say to my friend that I look at right now, they know how to pimp us. They know how to pimp us.
Not me. I'm unaffiliated. I'm not a part of this conversation.
As an example, I know we talked about your running for lieutenant governor. Now, Brother Robert, you are a forgotten group as minority males. What they want now is a minority female, organization bound, sorority bound. That's what they look for now. Organization, sorority group bound, because if they know they get that African American female to run, that sorority is going to be behind them. And that has pushed the minority candidate, male candidate, further away from the Democrat Party, because they see that they have been overlooked. Now, you ran for lieutenant governor. You was among the first. And the party, just for some apparent reason, want us to participate. And I served with you up there in the General Assembly, and I wasn't one of the well-liked representatives because I spoke my piece. And that's the problem that we have. So what do you see that we must do for the midterm election in 26? I submit to you, sir, I submit to you, since you in the Beltline, would you do one thing for me? Would you talk with the minority leader of the House? Would you talk with the minority leader of the Senate? Would you talk with the second vice president? And if you get a chance to speak with the governor and Jackson, is to say we got to have a coming together meeting by the midterms election, or we will not fare well in the midterms election. Can I pray upon you, sir, that you would do this if you have the time to fit in your schedule?
Well, I've already embarked upon that project, so to speak, because I'm a part now of an organization called Defenders of Democracy. That is an organization now that we're trying to put together all across the country to be a strong advocate in 2026, 2028, and 2030, because we strongly believe that our democracy has been taken away from us. But I will go back and emphasize one thing to you that I think the minority community needs to understand, that you will never, ever get out of your situation as long as we stay splintered. Until we come together and realize that we have one agenda, and that is to uplift our community. And what I mean by uplifting our community is we got to have more volunteers to teach and work with our youth. We got to have more volunteers like we used to do that have summer programs at the churches where kids can go and learn. Plus, the biggest problem I've seen in the minority community in the last 25 years is until you start spending money in your own community and turning that money over in your own community, your community will never grow. So if you get paid and you take your paycheck and spend it elsewhere, then don't expect your community to look any different, because the tax base for your community has been taken away.
Well,
So,
Robert, we do this on Sunday. What happened on Sunday? We have a large collection.
well, here's the problem with, and we don't have the large collection we used to have. For there's a program that had been instituted for the last 15 years where they call it the faith-based initiative program. And to me, that cut out part of the soul of the Black church, in that it started a process by which a lot of churches won't even allow politicians into their church to talk about anything, because they get federal funds, to a little bit of federal funds to fund some programs, and they feel like we got to make sure we maintain that funding. My thing is, we used to do it without those programs. We took care of our own, and we can still do it. We can take care of our own without those programs now.
Well, Robert, let me say this. Let me say, our churches have to realize that the church is a business organization. Right? Is a business organization, and it should look at outside. What I mean by outside is to look at how can they develop programs and projects and business and whatever, to enhance our community. If there's a vacant shopping center, as an example, that church should look at acquiring that shopping center and assist minority business to go into that shopping center so it can grow the community base and the community to provide tax dollars to that community. But anyway, Robert, I done bored you half to death this morning talking about politics, and I said, Tisha about to go to sleep. Wake up, Tisha.
No, I was getting ready to make a comment, but I'm gonna wait on Mr. Wilson. Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
I would simply tell you this, and understand one thing about me. I come out of the church. My grandfather was a presiding elder in the Holiness Church. So my thing with the church is this: I believe that the church is the body of Christ. All right. Jesus said that I come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. And if the body of Christ is the church, then the church has an obligation to uplift those people that are coming.
Absolutely. And I'll say this to both of your points, and I'm so glad you guys brought it here because this is what I think the solution is. When we look at the ailments of our society, I think we place a lot of emphasis on areas that are not necessarily going to yield the highest and best results. And I think that the place, if you are a believer, I'm not talking to you. If you are not a believer, you can keep focusing on all the other stuff. Tune me out. This is not for you. But if you are a believer, the Bible tells us that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. Our land is sick and it needs healing. And we are looking to people who do not have the capacity to pray and seek God's face and turn from their wicked ways to heal it. And that's the wrong place to be looking. We do have to work. The Bible says a man that don't work don't eat. We do have to work. We also must pray, and the church has to be restored. And I talked about this not too long ago, and you all, I'm only saying this to you two men because you've identified yourselves as believers, and I appreciate the fact that we brought the conversation here. We have to hold believers to a higher level of accountability for bringing this community up, because it is our responsibility. It does not fall on the shoulders of everybody else. It falls on our shoulders, and so we need to do our part, and we need to do it, as Mr. Wilson said, the way that Jesus showed us how to do it, because he's the roadmap, he's the example. Again, if you're not a believer, tune me out. This is not for you. If you believe in somebody else, tune me out. This is not for you. But if you are a believer, if you are a Christian, and you profess Christianity and you profess Christ, this is for you. Mr. Wilson, I appreciate you taking the time to come and sit with us. I thank you always because you bring such clarity, such a calmness, and so much information in such a succinct period of time. And I thank you for that, because we need help making sure that our people understand what's going on. And so we have to bring in voices that know. Mr. Floyd, I'll give you the ability to wrap it up with our guest, because you are good at that.
Robert, I just wanted to close by thanking you. When I was a member of the General Assembly, and you came to me with the idea that every university had a fitness center with Fayetteville State University. Now, today, sir, that program, that facility is now being built on Murchison Road, which is going to face Murchison Road, which is going to help the development and the growth of Murchison Road. So I just wanted to thank you, and if you have any parting comments that you want to leave with us.
No, other than to tell you that I really appreciate it. I am deeply humbled that you would allow me to be able to converse with the both of you this morning. That Health and Wellness Center at Fayetteville State University was a 10-year dream for me. And to get that actually funded to the tune of about $5.5 million when we got it. Now I understand the fund is up to about 13.
It
That
is.
was something that when I meet my maker, I'm going to talk about that. So,
Thank you, sir.
Lord, I got the university $5.5 million. Me and five of my FSU brothers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Same to
We'll see you,
y'all.
sir.
Love
Bye
y'all.
bye. Let's see. Okay, Mr. Floyd. Now listen, you gotta cut me some slack when I ask my questions, because you know I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah, no,
Let me learn.
it's good. It's good. I mean, but there's so much out there, Tish, that we try to inform the community within this hour, to educate the community, to get them to
Absolutely.
understand is that as you have an opportunity to sit in from your different roles, please just don't sit in to fit in, you know, there, just like, you know, I have conversations with my colleagues about charter schools, but they're taking away money from the public schools and giving it to a corporate America. You have to understand it, one thing is that charter school just didn't start in 2010. It started in 1991 when there was 100 charter schools set up in North Carolina. And the word was it was public school, but there was flexibility. And people don't realize that North Carolina has a corporate tax rate of 2.25%, which they want to phase out by 2030. But our surrounding state has a corporate tax rate of 5% to 5.5%. So businesses are going to locate
Where
in
they get the best
areas
right.
where they get the best rate. And
Mhm.
if business come in just like this, I think the single app that's going in Greensboro, that's going to have 14,000 people. If you would listen, look at that over a 20-year period of time, it would surpass the amount of money that they are putting into charter school. And look at the community itself, 14,000 jobs. Look at the money that's going to be spent, the houses that's going to be built. That's not including the business that's going to come in, so in that the resources that need to build this plane, they don't have to wait 2 days to get it. So you have to look at the total picture. And what we need to do is to stop being a brainwash. When these companies come in, they're not paying minimum wage of Madam Waddell. They're not paying $7.25 an hour.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so sometimes you have to look at it. And a corporation in corporate America is like anybody else. They want free money.
Yeah.
And it must be available to provide this free money as incentive to attract these individuals, I mean, these organizations to it. That's what we
Right.
have to understand. We
And we
didn't,
have to stop begrudging these corporate incentives, because the corporate incentives bring corporations, which brings jobs, which raises the wages in the community. So you have to give to get. Mr. Floyd, I forgot to mention this at the top of the show. We are pre-recording early because we have something going on tomorrow that prevents us from being able to record at our regular scheduled time. So if anybody is wondering why you're seeing us on a Wednesday instead of on a Thursday, that is why we are still live on Thursdays at 9:30. We will be back next Thursday live at 9:30. Mr. Floyd, the last thing I want to make mention of is something that Mr. Wilson said during our conversation when he talked about how we have shifted from, or the organic installation of public leaders, to this system where now a party or a group of people attempts to install the public leaders. I was having a conversation, Mr. Floyd, with somebody who I will not mention their name, but they were talking about who they'd like to see on council, and they were talking about like trying to brainstorm how they could make it happen. And I instantly said, listen, that is not a good idea. Don't try and build a council. Let the community seat who they want, and then teach the community to hold them accountable. Because when one individual builds a council, they're building somebody who shares their vision or their ideology. But that's not fair to the community and the people that are being served, because the council members should be beholden to their constituents. You say it all the time, Floyd. How do you say it? First your conscience, first your conscience.
first the conscience. Now, first my constituents.
Mhm.
Second is my conscience. And third is my caucus.
And that's that's
That's how I
that's
make
the way.
decisions.
Now, and some people might invert those first two. Like I would probably say conscience, constituents. I don't have a caucus because I'm not a party person. I'm unaffiliated.
That's how I made this decision.
Right. Right. And I think that that's even how we should look at getting people into these positions. Let the community elect who they want. Push the community to get out and vote and let the community decide who sits in these seats. And when they get there, hold them accountable. Period.
Well, Tisha, as we close, power, power, power concede to no one unless a fist is
Unless a
involved.
demand is made. Absolutely. And we need to stop looking at these positions as positions of power. They are positions of honor. It is a position of honor. It is an honor to be elected to reflect the will of a community. It is an honor. It is not a power grab. And Mr. Floyd, what would you like to leave us with in closing? What you want to tell our people?
Well, Tisha, I still got my dog. If he bring that, he's gonna carry it. That's my dog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Have a
we've
good
talked
week.
to Gritty in the City and the Word on the Curb. And I tell you every week, justice apart from righteousness does not exist. It is a fallacy. If you desire true justice, you must desire righteousness. I love you. Have a wonderful day. And we will catch you on the next episode.